The chamber of the Galactic Confederation fell silent as Ambassador Chen of Earth stepped to the podium. The massive amphitheater, designed to accommodate representatives of over 300 species, seemed to swallow her diminutive human form. Beings of all shapes, sizes, and evolutionary paths watched with contempt as the human prepared to speak. Supreme Chancellor Zixthar, an imposing figure with 6 crystalline appendages and skin that shifted colors with his emotions, had just finished announcing the Confederation's unanimous decision Earth was to be subjugated, its resources harvested, and its population utilized as labor for the more advanced species of the galaxy. The vote stands at 387 to 0. Zixthar's voice boomed through the chamber. Earth has been classified as a Class 7 primitive world with minimal defensive capabilities. The subjugation fleet will depart at the conclusion of this assembly. Ambassador Chen adjusted her simple black suit and looked across the sea of alien faces. Some bioluminescent, some mechanical, some barely visible through specialized environmental chambers. She didn't tremble. She didn't plead. She simply waited until the murmuring died down. Distinguished representatives of the Galactic Confederation, she began, her voice calm and controlled. I stand before you as Earth's final diplomatic effort. The decision you have made today is one your civilizations will regret for generations to come. Laughter rippled through the chamber. A Vulgarian delegate, known for their aggressive territorial expansion, stood up. Human, your species has barely mastered basic interstellar travel. Your weapons are primitive. Your understanding of reality is incomplete. What possible threat could you pose to civilizations that have sailed the cosmic currents for millennia? Ambassador Chen smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. We came to you in peace. We shared our culture, our art, our music. We opened diplomatic channels. We asked for nothing but fair treatment and respect. She paused, making eye contact with several delegates. You mistook our restraint for weakness, our diplomacy for fear, our patience for inability. A hushed silence fell across the chamber. You believe you know what humanity is. You've studied our broadcast signals. You've analyzed our visible technology. You've measured our apparent progress. She leaned forward slightly. But you have no idea what you're waking up. The Chancellor's skin turned a deep blue of dismissal. Your threats are as empty as your diplomatic standing, Ambassador. This meeting is concluded. The subjugation fleet launches in 3 rotations. As Ambassador Chen was escorted from the chamber, she spoke one final time, her voice carrying clearly across the vast space. When your fleet arrives, remember this moment. Remember you were warned. Fleet Admiral Kraxvos of the Confederation Armada watched from the bridge of his flagship, the inevitable dominance, as 10,000 warships prepared to enter hyperspace, the largest coordinated assault in Confederation history, assembled to subjugate a single backwater world. Overkill, wouldn't you say, Admiral? His second-in-command Sub-Commander Peltoth asked. Kraxvos's 4 eyes blinked asymmetrically in amusement. Perhaps, but the Supreme Chancellor insisted on an overwhelming show of force. The humans must understand their place in the cosmos from the moment we arrive. Their ambassador's warning has become something of a joke among the crew, Peltoth noted. As it should be, the Admiral replied. Our intelligence indicates their military capabilities are primitive at best. Combustion-based projectiles, rudimentary energy weapons, and a handful of ships barely capable of reaching their own moon. They'll surrender within hours. The Armada entered hyperspace in perfect formation, a testament to the Confederation's coordination and power. The journey to Earth would take 7 standard days at maximum speed. No one aboard any ship noticed the quantum ripples that followed in their wake, or the faint signature of something's tracking their every movement through the higher dimensions. On Earth, in a facility deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Eliza Santos received the transmission from Ambassador Chen. They've made their decision then, Santos said, her face expressionless. Yes, General. The vote was unanimous, the holographic image of Chen replied. The Confederation fleet launches in 3 days. I've been ordered to return to Earth immediately. Santos nodded and turned to the assembled group of military and scientific leaders. Ladies and gentlemen, Operation Sleeping Giant is now in effect. Authorization code Thunderbolt. Around the table, each person placed their palm on the biometric scanner in front of them. Green lights flashed in sequence. Authorization confirmed, announced the facility's AI. Operation Sleeping Giant protocols engage. Awaiting your command, General. Santos took a deep breath. Activate the Veil protocol. Deploy the Sentinel network. Wake up the Guardians. Throughout the solar system, hidden installations hummed to life. Massive structures that had been disguised as asteroids, moons, and orbital debris began to transform. Beneath the oceans of Earth, colossal facilities activated after decades of dormancy. The first line of defense would be invisibility. Let the enemy come, thinking they knew what awaited them. 7 days later, Admiral Kraxvos stood triumphant as the Confederation fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. Commence scanning, Mr. He ordered. I want complete tactical analysis of their defenses. Admiral, the sensor officer called out almost immediately. We're detecting. Nothing. Nothing? No orbital defenses, no military installations on their moon, no weapons platforms, just civilian satellites and a small space station. Kraxvos smiled, his facial ridges extending in satisfaction. As expected, proceed to Earth orbit. Prepare the intimidation protocols. Let them see our full might before we demand their surrender. The massive armada moved forward, accelerating toward the blue planet. Their sensors continued to sweep space, detecting nothing of concern. The humans had no defensive grid, no planetary shield, nothing to stop the most powerful fleet in the known galaxy. Sir, the communications officer interrupted. We're receiving a transmission from Earth. Put it through, Kraxvos ordered, settling into his command chair. Let's hear their pleas for mercy. The main view screen activated, showing a human in a military uniform. Unlike Ambassador Chen, this human wore no expression of diplomacy. Confederation Fleet, this is General Eliza Santos of Earth Defense Command. You have entered restricted space without authorization. You will power down your weapon systems and reverse course immediately, or we will consider this an act of war. Laughter erupted across the bridge. Earth Defense Command? Kraxvos chuckled. Your bravado is amusing, General. But our scans show no defensive capabilities whatsoever. Your attempt at intimidation is pathetic. General Santos leaned forward, her dark eyes fixed on the Admiral. This is your final warning. You see nothing because we choose for you to see nothing. Withdraw now. Enough of this farce, Kraxvos snapped. Prepare the primary weapons array. Target their largest military installations. Show them the futility of resistance. Yes, Admiral, his weapons officer replied, manipulating the controls. General Santos sighed on the screen. Remember, Admiral, you were warned. The transmission cut off. Such drama, Kraxvos muttered. Commence the attack. The first indication that something was wrong came when the targeting systems on every ship in the fleet simultaneously failed. Admiral, the weapons officer called out, panic in his voice. I can't establish target lock. Before Kraxvos could respond, the sensor officer shouted, Energy spike! Massive energy spike coming from everywhere. Space itself seemed to ripple around the fleet. Where moments before there had been empty void, now hundreds, no, thousands of structures appeared. Massive orbital platforms, sleek warships, and weapon arrays materialized as if from nowhere. Impossible, Kraxvos whispered. Where did they come from? Sir, the tactical officer reported, voice trembling. They were there all along. Some kind of cloaking technology far beyond our capabilities. Our sensors can't penetrate it even now that we can see them. All ships, battle formation, Kraxvos ordered. Prepare to Surno. He never finished the command. A series of brilliant blue-white beams lanced out from the nearest Earth defense platform, striking 20 Confederation warships simultaneously. The vessels didn't explode, they simply ceased to exist, their atoms scattered across space. By the ancients, Subcommander Peltoth gasped. What weapons are these? The next wave came from what appeared to be Earth vessels, though unlike any spacecraft design the Confederation had encountered. They moved with impossible speed and precision, their hulls absorbing energy weapons as if they were nothing more than light shows. Within minutes, a third of the Confederation fleet was destroyed or disabled. All ships, emergency retreat, Kraxvos ordered, his pride forgotten in the face of annihilation. Return to hyperspace immediately. But hyperspace engines across the fleet failed to activate. Something was preventing their escape. A new transmission came through. General Santos again, her expression now one of cold fury. You came to our home with 10,000 warships, Admiral. You came to enslave a peaceful people who sought only friendship. Now you understand the consequences of that decision. Around the Earth fleet, new portals began to open wormholes, the likes of which Confederation science had theorized but never achieved. Through these portals came more ships, thousands more, bearing the emblems of Earth. How? Kraxvos demanded. How could you hide such technology, such military might? We have lived in the shadow of our own extinction for centuries, Admiral. We advanced not through conquest like your Confederation, but through necessity. through fear of what might exist among the stars. Sanos's voice was steady, emotionless. We hope those fears were unfounded. You have proven they were not. The last thing Admiral Craxfos saw before his flagship was struck by one of those terrible blue-white beams was the Earth General's final words appearing on his screen. The children of Earth have been playing a very different game than you thought. And now the game changes. Supreme Chancellor Zixthar's crystalline appendages trembled as the emergency session of the Galactic Confederation convened. Only 217 representatives were present. Many were still en route from distant systems, and others were simply missing. The reports must be mistaken, the Vulgarian delegate insisted, his thick hide flushed with stress indicators. No single planetary species could destroy the Confederation armada. It's impossible. Zixthar's skin had remained a sickly white since the news had arrived. The evidence is undeniable. Of the 10,000 ships we sent, only 1,800 returned. And those that did, their crews speak of technologies we cannot comprehend, weapons that defy our understanding of physics, defensive systems that rendered our most powerful attacks useless. A murmur of fear rippled through the assembly. What do they want? Asked the representative from Proxima Centauri, a gaseous being contained within an environmental suit. Have they made demands? No, Zixthar replied. They have made no contact since the battle. But our long-range observatories have detected massive movement throughout the Sol system. They are building something, mobilizing. The chamber doors burst open and a junior aide rushed in, protocol forgotten in his panic. Chancellor, we've lost contact with the Rigelian home system. Stunned silence fell over the assembly. Explain, Zixthar ordered. All communication with Rigel and its colonies ceased simultaneously. Our nearest monitoring station detected a massive fleet emerging from something like hyperspace but different. The Rigelians voted for Earth's subjugation. They were the first to advocate for it. The implications weren't lost on anyone present. Earth was striking back, and they were being methodical about it. We must sue for peace, the Arcturan delegate suggested, their holographic form flickering with agitation. Send diplomats, offer reparations. It's too late for that, a familiar voice announced from the entrance to the chamber. Ambassador Chen walked calmly down the central aisle, her footsteps echoing in the terrified silence. She wore the same simple black suit as before, but somehow she seemed taller, more imposing. Ambassador, Zixthar acknowledged, struggling to maintain composure. We wish to express our deepest regrets for the misunderstanding that has occurred. The Confederation is prepared to offer. I am no longer an ambassador, Chen interrupted. That role ended when you voted to enslave my people. I am now a messenger. She reached the center of the chamber and looked around at the assembled representatives, many of whom couldn't meet her gaze. Humanity has existed in isolation for most of our history, she began. We evolved on a world of predators, survived ice ages and meteor impacts, diseases and our own violent tendencies. When we finally looked to the stars, it was with hope, with dreams of friendship and shared knowledge. Her voice hardened. Instead, we found you, a confederation of species that votes to enslave those they consider primitive. That judges worth by age rather than action. That sees diplomacy as a weakness to exploit. Please, Zixthar begged, his skin now a deep purple of terror. We can negotiate. The time for negotiation has passed, Chen stated flatly. Now is the time for consequences. Every civilization that voted for Earth's subjugation will face judgment. You would destroy entire species? Gasped the Proxima Centauri delegate. Billions of innocent lives? Chen's expression softened slightly. No, we are not like you. We do not punish the many for the decisions of the few. Your leadership will be held accountable. Your military capabilities will be adjusted. Your societies will be monitored until you demonstrate that you can be trusted with power. And if we resist? Asked the Vulgarian, a hint of his species' famous aggression returning. Chen smiled that same unsettling smile. Then you will learn why, throughout our violent history, the one thing that unified humanity was the fear of what we might become if truly threatened. She turned and began walking back toward the exit. Wait, Zixthar called out. What happens now? Chen paused but didn't turn around. Now you wait. Earth's judgment comes to each of you in turn. Make peace with your beliefs, Chancellor. Your time of reckoning approaches. As she left, the chamber erupted into panic. Representatives shouted over each other, some calling for united defense, others for immediate surrender, still others for hiding in distant, uncharted systems. None of them noticed the small device Chen had left behind, quietly recording everything. In the following weeks, reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The pattern was consistent. Earth ships would appear in system after system, bypassing all defensive measures as if they weren't there. They would target military installations, government centers, and weapons research facilities with surgical precision. No civilian populations were harmed. No planets were bombarded. But the message was clear: humanity could have destroyed them all had they chosen to. The Vulgarians learned this lesson most directly. When they attempted to assemble a counteroffensive, their ships discovered their advanced weapons simply wouldn't fire. Something had been done to the fundamental principles that made their technology work. Their greatest scientists were baffled. The Arcturans, who had extensive automated defense networks, watched in horror as their systems turned against them. Controlled by entities that moved through their networks like ghosts, the Rigelians, the first to face Earth's judgment, found themselves under the watchful eyes of orbiting satellites that could see through walls, detect lie patterns in speech, and predict violent intent before it manifested. Within a month, 78 civilizations had been visited. None had been destroyed. All had been humbled. On the indomitable Will, Earth's flagship, General Santos reviewed the latest reports with her command staff. "The Confederation is fracturing," Admiral Patel noted, gesturing to the holographic display showing political realignments across the galaxy. "Nearly a third of their members have formally withdrawn, seeking separate peace with Earth." "And the remaining members, Huena?" Santos asked. "Divided," replied Colonel Takahashi, head of intelligence. "Some want to fight, believing we can't possibly maintain this pace of operations. Others want to surrender unconditionally." Santos nodded, studying the display. "And our next target?" "The Zixstar homeworld," Takahashi confirmed. "Our analysts believe the symbolic value of dethroning the Supreme Chancellor will effectively end organized resistance." "Very well," Santos said. "Prepare the fleet. Standard protocols, military and government targets only. No civilian casualties." As her staff dispersed to carry out their orders, Santos remained, looking at the galaxy map. So many stars, so many worlds. Humanity had prepared for this moment for generations, hiding their true capabilities, building in secret, always watching the skies. It wasn't supposed to be this way. First contact should have been a celebration, not a prelude to conflict. But humanity had long suspected that the universe might not be the friendly place they hoped for. They had prepared accordingly. Chancellor Zixstar stood alone on the observation deck of his palace, watching the skies. The evacuation of government officials had been completed hours ago, but he had chosen to remain. This was his failure. He would face the consequences. The first sign of Earth's arrival was subtle, a slight distortion in the stars, as if space itself was being folded. Then they appeared. Not the thousands of ships he had expected, but a single vessel. Massive, yes, but alone. His communication console chimed. With trembling appendages, he accepted the transmission. General Santos appeared on the screen. Behind her stood Ambassador Chen. "Chancellor Zixstar," Santos acknowledged. "General," he replied, his voice steady despite his fear. "I assume you've come for me." "Yes. And my people will be unharmed, provided there is no resistance." Zixstar's skin shifted to a pale blue of resignation. "There will be none. I have ordered all defensive systems powered down. Our military stands down." "A wise decision," Santos said. "May I ask, what happens now? To me? To the Confederation?" Santos glanced at Chen, who stepped forward. "Now, Chancellor, you learn." "Learn?" "Yes. About humanity. About who we really are. About why we hid our true nature from the stars." Chen's expression was not unkind. "You thought us primitive because we chose not to display our full capabilities. You mistook our peaceful overtures for weakness." Zixstar's skin darkened with shame. "We were wrong." "Yes," Chen agreed. "But not just about our technology or our military strength. You were wrong about what makes a civilization advanced." A transport shuttle departed from the Earth vessel, heading toward the palace. "I will come peacefully," Zixstar assured them. "Good, Nanham," Santos replied. "But you misunderstand. You're not being taken as a prisoner. You're being taken as a student." "I don't understand." Chen smiled, but this time it reached her eyes. "Humanity has a long history of conflict, Chancellor. We've nearly destroyed ourselves more than once. We've committed atrocities against our own kind that would make even the Vulgarians recoil in horror." "Then how?" "We learned," Santos interjected. "We grew. We recognized that true advancement isn't measured in weapons or technology, but in how we treat others. In our capacity for empathy, for understanding, for seeing the universe not as something to conquer, but as something to share." Zixstar's skin rippled with confusion. But your military power is the result of fear, Chen explained. Fear of meeting someone like you among the stars. We prepared for the worst while hoping for the best. The shuttle was approaching the landing pad now. Chancellor, Santos continued, you and your fellow leaders will be taken to Earth. There you will live among us. Learn our history, our culture, our failures, and our triumphs. See firsthand what humanity truly is. And then, when you understand, you will return to your people. You will help build a new confederation, one based not on power and subjugation, but on mutual respect and cooperation. Zixthar looked at the human face on his screen, searching for deception but finding none. Why not simply replace us? Install your own leaders. Because that's not who we are, Chen said simply. We don't want subjects or slaves. We want equals, partners, friends, if possible. The Chancellor's skin slowly shifted to a color he rarely displayed, a deep gold of understanding. I believe, he said slowly, that I have much to learn. The transmission ended as the shuttle touched down. Zixthar moved toward the landing pad, his mind reeling with new possibilities. He had expected annihilation. Instead, he was being offered education. Perhaps humans were more alien than he had ever imagined. Dr. Ilara Monroe, director of the Galactic Cultural Exchange Program, watched as the former leaders of the Confederation filed into the large auditorium at the United Nations headquarters in New York. 6 weeks had passed since the fall of the old Confederation, and this was the first time all 83 former government officials had been gathered in one place. Some walked on limbs, others floated in anti-gravity units, and a few existed within specialized environmental chambers. All looked around with a mixture of wonder, confusion, and lingering fear. Welcome to Earth, Ilara greeted them. Her voice automatically translated through the neural interfaces each visitor had been provided. For the next year, this planet will be your home, your classroom, and hopefully your first step toward a new understanding of what it means to be part of a galactic community. Former Chancellor Zixthar, now simply Citizen Zixthar, moved to the front of the group. His crystalline appendages shimmered in the sunlight streaming through the large windows. Dr. Monroe, he acknowledged, we are grateful for this opportunity, though many of us still struggle to understand your motivations. By all metrics of conflict resolution with which we are familiar, Earth should have established direct control over our worlds. Ilara smiled. That was never our intention, Citizen Zixthar. Control through force creates only temporary stability. What we seek is something more lasting. She gestured to the screens behind her, which came to life showing various scenes from Earth's history. Today, we begin with our failures, with the darkest chapters of human history. It is important that you understand not just what humanity is now, but what we have overcome to get here. The screens displayed images of war, of environmental devastation, of cruelty and injustice spanning centuries. We have known divisiveness, Ilara continued. We have known hatred. We have stood at the brink of our own extinction multiple times, sometimes through external threats, but most often through our own doing. The alien dignitaries watched in silence, some with biological expressions of shock, others with their emotional reactions hidden by their different physiologies. Yet each time we pulled back. We learned. We grew. Not all at once, and not without tremendous cost, but consistently, generation after generation, we moved towards something better. New images appeared of cooperation, of scientific achievement, of artistic expression. What you see as our strength, our technology, our military capabilities, these are not the result of natural evolution or peaceful development. They were born from our fear that when we reach the stars, we might find versions of ourselves at our worst. Zan Pol, the former Bulgarian governor whose aggressive colonial policies had earned him particular infamy, shifted uncomfortably. You prepared for war, he stated, for conquest. We prepared for the possibility, Ilara corrected. We hoped for peace. When your confederation dismissed our diplomatic efforts and voted for our enslavement, you confirmed our worst fears about what might exist among the stars. Yet you did not destroy us when you could have, noted Talara, the Arcturan former director of strategic operations. Why? Ilara's expression softened. Because by the time we met you, we had already faced our demons. We had already learned that destruction is easy. Building something worthwhile is hard. She gestured to the windows, where the Manhattan skyline gleamed in the distance. Look out there. What do you see? The aliens looked confused by the question. Buildings, Zixthar ventured. A city? You see a place that was destroyed and rebuilt multiple times throughout our history, Ilara explained. by natural disaster, by war, by economic collapse. Yet each time humans came together and built something better than what came before. She turned back to the assembly. This is the first lesson we hope you'll learn during your time here. Resilience isn't measured by your ability to destroy threats, but by your ability to rebuild, to adapt, to grow stronger through cooperation rather than conquest. Talara's holographic form flickered with what the humans had come to recognize as thoughtfulness. You speak of cooperation, yet your ships continue to monitor our worlds, to restrict our military capabilities. Some might call this hypocrisy. Ilara nodded. A fair observation. Trust must be earned on both sides. The restrictions will be lifted gradually as we establish new relationships based on mutual respect and understanding. And if we choose not to participate in this, re-education, Sandpole challenged, then you will be returned to your worlds, but the restrictions will remain in place longer, Ilara replied calmly. We don't seek to force new ideologies upon you. We simply ask that you truly understand us before you decide whether we can be partners or must remain adversaries. The assembled aliens exchanged glances, a complex silent communication occurring between beings who, until recently, had considered themselves the pinnacle of galactic civilization. We will learn, Zixtar finally said. Whether we agree with your methods or not, you have demonstrated wisdom we did not expect. Perhaps there is more we did not see. Ilara smiled. That's all we ask. Now let's begin your introduction to humanity, the complete story, not just what you thought you knew. 6 months later, Citizen Zixtar stood in the middle of a crowded New York street fair, his environmental suit now reduced to a small breathing apparatus. Around him, humans of all ages, ethnicities, and backgrounds mingled with the former Confederation leaders who had become students of Earth culture. Try this one, urged Mai, a young food vendor who had become one of Zixtar's favorite humans. She held out a stick of something covered in a sticky brown substance. What is it? He asked, eyeing it suspiciously. Chocolate-covered banana, Mai explained. Sweet, but also nutritious. My grandmother's recipe. Zixtar carefully took the treat with one crystalline appendage and brought it to his mouth. His species absorbed nutrients through specialized membranes rather than eating as humans did. But the human biochemist had created an interface that allowed him to experience taste. The flavor burst across his perception, sweet, rich, with underlying complexity. It's remarkable, he admitted. Mai beamed. Right? Wait until you try her spicy noodles. Even better. Nearby, Talara's holographic form hovered beside a group of children who were showing her how to fly a kite. Despite having no physical form to manipulate the string, she was directing a small drone that carried the kite aloft, much to the children's delight. Even Zanpol, the most resistant to Earth's cultural indoctrination, as he initially called it, was engaged in an animated conversation with a group of university students about comparative political systems. They're adapting well, noted General Santos, who had appeared beside Zixtar without him noticing. General, he acknowledged, his skin flushing briefly with surprise. Yes, most of us are finding the experience enlightening. And you, Shurikis, she asked. 6 months ago, you were the supreme chancellor of the most powerful political entity in the known galaxy. Now you're eating street food in Manhattan. Quite a change. Zixtar's skin shifted to a contemplative blue. It is, but perhaps a necessary one. They watched the crowds together for a moment. You know, Zixtar said, when we first received your transmissions decades ago, your entertainment broadcasts, your news, your music, we thought we understood humanity. We saw your conflicts, your divisions, your competitive nature, and we dismissed you as primitive. Too young to join galactic society as equals. A reasonable assumption based on limited information, Santos conceded. No, Zixtar countered, surprising her. It was arrogance. We saw what confirmed our existing biases and ignored the rest. We didn't notice that beneath the conflict was cooperation. Beneath the division was unity and crisis. Beneath the competition was mutual growth. His crystalline structure caught the sunlight, casting rainbow patterns on the pavement. Your ambassador Chen once told me that humanity had been playing a different game than we thought. I'm beginning to understand what she meant. Santos nodded. Evolution shaped us as competitors, but civilization made us cooperators. It wasn't an easy transition. It's still ongoing. But we've learned that our greatest strength isn't in dominating others, but in finding ways to work together despite our differences. A lesson the Confederation never learned, Zixtar acknowledged. We unified through necessity, through fear of the unknown. We maintained our unity through hierarchy and the subjugation of younger species. And yet, Santos pointed out, here you are, willing to learn a different way. Not all of us, Zixthar admitted. Some of my colleagues participate in your program only because they fear the consequences of refusal. Some still believe that once your attention turns elsewhere, they can return to the old ways. We know, Santos said simply. Change takes time. Genuine change takes even longer. Zixthar regarded her curiously. You're not concerned? We're cautious, Santos corrected, but also hopeful. Even if only a fraction of you truly embrace what we're trying to teach, it's a beginning, a foundation for something better. In the distance, fireworks began to explode over the Hudson River, celebrating some human festival Zixthar couldn't remember the name of. The crowds cheered, and for a moment, aliens and humans alike looked upward in shared appreciation of the spectacle. General, Zixthar said quietly, I believe I owe humanity an apology, not just for the attempted subjugation, but for the dismissal. For the contempt we showed before we ever truly knew you. Sanos turned to face him fully. Apology accepted, Citizen Zixthar, but perhaps more importantly understood. The path forward isn't about dwelling on past mistakes, but about ensuring they're not repeated. His skin shifted to a warm orange of gratitude. A very human perspective, General. Perhaps, she replied with a slight smile. Or perhaps it's simply the perspective of any species that has learned from its failures. They watched the fireworks together, former enemies, now cautious allies, while around them, the complex dance of cultural exchange continued a small but significant step toward a very different future than either had imagined.